All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there, and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, one of your hosts here, alongside good friend Sam, and it is being recorded on Friday afternoon, the 27th of June. A day away from Chelsea in the next stage of the FIFA Club World Cup, taking on Benfica. So in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Benfica, what's going on there, maybe touch on a sprinkling of the rumors that have been circulating in regards to Chelsea transfers. And then also, Sam has been very, very hard at work at a Jamie Gittens preview as more news continues to suggest that he might become a Chelsea player. But again, we're not going to drop a full preview before the players sign anymore. We've learned our lesson. We don't want to do that. We even got caught up on the whole Mike Mannion thing and keeps on loan this season. So we are going to keep the powder dry on that one, Sam. But you do want to give the listeners a little bit of a taste just to make sure that the amuse-bouche around Jamie Gittens, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've kept me on my toes this transfer season as always, and I've had to go not just for Gittens, but also look at Malik Fofana at Lyon. Also go and watch Alejandro Garnacho a little bit at United. God save my eyes after that debacle. But otherwise, it's been just a good summer watching a lot of players. And yeah, in terms of Gittens, I think when you look at it from an eagle-eye perspective, then obviously an athletic freak, somebody who's a two-footed winger, can go both ways, is quite electric. So I think almost Mudrik slash Jeremy Doku-esque in terms of how quick he is and how well he, how directly he goes at opponents. So in that sense, I think it's a winger that Maresca will enjoy. Obviously, ex-City background as well. But I think my major issues were going and looking at Dortmund and seeing how the tactical support helps him and how the entire tactical shape around him is built to give him the kind of situations that he thrives in. It's not necessarily something that we'll see at Chelsea. So it's a mixed bag for me. I think I can look at Gittens and say very good player. And in a system where you could give him the kind of space that the Bundesliga gives you, he will be absolutely phenomenal. But the Premier League is a different beast. So we'll wait and see, which is why I think a lot of people in the community, including a lot of us in the LIBP chat, are sort of cynical about the 65 million plus price tag. Probably not what you'd want to play for what I would necessarily say a winger not at his peak, but hey, it's around the same price that people paid for Doku. So that argument can be made from our SDs as well. But yes, I'm probably going to put together a comprehensive scouting report if that deal happens. You and I did Rafinha and jumped the gun. Not repeating that mistake again. So fingers crossed.
We will not put ourselves in that position of having to walk it back, nor get Barcelona channels or other teams' channels giving us a lot of recognition for doing some scouting reports that they were able to enjoy. So again, hats off to all the Barcelona fans who were able to enjoy our Rafinha signing preview podcast. Anyway, again, we're going to get into this one. We're going to talk about Benfica and the Club World Cup. We're going to talk about a couple of transfer rumors, and we're going to get into that little bit of preview around just some of the work that Sam has done around Jamie Gittens. Not a full preview podcast, but just some of the things that he wants you to maybe keep an eye on, or if you're starting to investigate the player and are heading to YouTube, what you might want to keep an eye out for. But before we do that, just always a quick thanks. Everybody helps support the podcast. You can always do so by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Always appreciated. We do have links in the description, both on YouTube and in the show notes about our end of season survey. We really, really love some feedback there so we can help improve the show over the upcoming season. Things you like, things that you don't like, making sure that we get you the best possible Chelsea content that is available. We also would love for you to sign up for our free weekly newsletter, London's Blue Dispatch. Sam puts a ton of work into it, and he would absolutely enjoy if you had a chance to read that. Again, a free way to support the podcast. And then also, we did hit 40,000 subscribers on YouTube as a huge milestone for us. So if you had a chance to sub, we appreciate that. If you haven't, help us on that quest to 50,000, because we're maxers here on this show. We'd love to see the next milestone come sooner rather than later. So thank you again for 40,000 subscribers on YouTube as well. But Sam, Benfica in the Club World Cup. I mean, they did not smash Auckland City the same way that other teams may have. They did get a 6-0 win there. They did, in fact, beat Bayern Munich to a which was I think maybe the more unexpected result in this, and then they did have the 2-2 draw against Boca Juniors as well. So I guess a very interesting type of result structure that they've had in the Club World Cup, but ultimately they are our next opposition. They stand between us and a match against Botafogo or Palmeiras, whichever is the team that advances out of that grouping. So, how do you feel about Benfica as a draw candidate? How do you feel maybe about our side of the bracket? Which, look, if we had finished in the top of the group, would have been a much more challenging prospect to advance out of the, or maybe into the semifinals.
And definitely the easier side of the group and kind of relieved, but also like the Brazilians have done very well in the tournament. Obviously,
Yeah.
look like they're in the middle of their season and well drilled and essentially seems like a tournament where they can go out and prove that European football isn't hot shit and it's just more about everybody. When the ground is level with the temperatures that have been there in the US and the conditions that have been there, then basically there's just big prize there for the taking. So I think the semi-finals, quarterfinals will be quite intriguing. Benfica themselves, I think, are quite a good side. The only issue is that in the Portuguese league, there is, I think, almost a Spanish league division, whereas there are three really good teams, and after that, there's a huge drop in terms of attackers, defending standards, and that's why Benfica put up the numbers that they do in the Portuguese league, where it's like 84 goals scored in 34 games and everybody is hitting like 20, 25 goal assist contributions. So I think it is still going to be a strong side. We did see against Bayern, even when they did rotate a lot, that their, I would say, A.5 team did a very, very good job on Bayern. And I think there are a lot of players in there that Chelsea have personally been linked to. So could look at it as an Enzo Fernandez, revenge match for them, like you mentioned, or it's going to be just audition tapes for the likes of, Silva in the back. And obviously, when you've got Juan Silva, who's done very well at Chelsea, could we be tempted to go for another right centre back? You've got Truban at the goalkeeping position, who's been superb, and obviously like a couple of others up front. So it'll be quite interesting to see. And I think it's a very very good matchup. It's a strong side. It's a quick side, and I think it'll be much more difficult than people think. People are just thinking about what could have been in terms of the matchup, but this one will be extremely tough as well.
And I mean, maybe just in terms of a how we think it goes, or if one player, again, it's that because it's the Club World Cup brought to you by Mick Ultra, is the superior player of the match. It does feel as if we're gonna do something right in this game. I mean, are you looking anywhere else other than Pedro Neto or Enzo Fernandez as like the game defining players in this match based upon just how they've looked, I think maybe sharper than some of the other players that we've had on our team in the competition so far?
I'm quite intrigued by Liam Delap, to be honest. And I'm looking at a 37-year-old Nicolas Otamendi in the back line, and I'm saying, there's a chance. There's a chance that the way Benfica play, you've got a young centre forward who wants to prove that he can, go shoulder to shoulder with, World Cup winner. So I think he will be fired up for this one. I think there's an opportunity where you can outpace him, you can out strengthen him outside the box. So I'm keeping a very close eye on Liam Delap. But obviously, like you mentioned, the stronger, more fitter players that have already made an impact. I think Pedro Neto looks like a good bet. I'm quite intrigued to see how Cole Palmer comes out for this one. It has looked very, I don't know, jaded, very laggy in for a long, long time, and he likes the big occasion. So you never know if he comes up, with the goods this time around. But I do think Liam Delap versus Otamendi is going to be a very, very good contest. So I think he's going to be my pick.
All right, so maybe then just shifting gears to how Benfica have been playing, maybe in more specific, as it were, things that just style of play related, things that have been working well for them, weaknesses that we can exploit. How would you walk us through how this team has been playing for those who are maybe uninitiated to Benfica, either the Club World Cup or how they're playing, in the end of last season?
Yeah, the good thing is that I mean it wouldn't be completely uninitiated because Bruno Lage, the manager who is at the helm right now, is somebody that who's coached in the Premier League for Wolves. And his side sort of plays in the same way. I think there are certain adjustments made in terms of philosophy. I think it's a very fluid side. They don't stick to one complete system or formation. So you could end up seeing them in a 4-2-3-1. You'll see them in a 4-3-3. They even go to a back three at times. But the core philosophy, as is with all good managers, remains the same. So he relies on a very proactive, high pressing system. And the side is essentially built for that. It's a strong core of technically very nifty players and physically robust athletes. So it's a heavy mix of both. And it's a side that competes very well in duels. It's a side that can essentially overwhelm you with physical intensity. So I think that's something to keep in mind. But when you come to playing style, Dan, a side that I would say is quite possession heavy in the Portuguese league, where it's easy to be one. But against stronger sides, especially like Bayern Munich, um, it's less of building out from the back and more about baiting players to press you. And it's more about trying to go from back to front quickly and picking your moments. So, key to that is you've got Vangelis Pavlidis, the Greek striker, up front. He's quite quick for a big man, and he can function both as a box striker and as somebody who can drop deep to link up play with his attacking midfielders. He's got some nice flick ons for runners. He's managed 26 goal and assist contributions last season in the league alone, and 19 of them have been goals. So that's something to watch out for. What is interesting about the attack, Dan, is that there is a lot of what we say is the term is counter movements. So essentially, the centre forward and the two attacking midfielders or the wingers make opposing movements. So the centre forward will essentially drop, and the two wingers will go run in behind, or the two wingers will try to drop, and the center forward runs in behind. And what that does is it essentially manipulates the back line, and it gives them a dilemma in terms of do I, step up to the center forward, do I drop back to stop the runs, and a lot of Benfica's attacking play, centered around that, trying to make dilemmas in the back line, trying to make sure that they are, flummoxed between a ball in behind and a ball short in between lines. So that's where a lot of the issues happen. Kerem Aktürkoğlu, who's a Turkish international, who's done very, very well for them, is somebody who I think gives that approach quite a nice flex because he's somebody who's played on the left wing, on the right wing. He's also played as the left attacking midfielder. So Benfica's wide players can play essentially as touchline wingers, but also in the half spaces. And they have to be close to Pavlidis, but they also have to be able to run in behind. So it's quite a well-rounded attack in that sense. And Aktürkoğlu, for example, is somebody who notched 20 goals and assists last season in the league, 11 of them goals, 9 assists. And you obviously know Di Maria, who's been just evergreen on the right-hand side. And he's, I think, less of a take-on artist now and more about trying to create issues with his passing, with his shooting. So it's a very fluid attack. It's got a lot of qualities. It's got, a lot of variety in terms of how they threaten. So that's going to be, I think, very interesting from him. And the two wingers coming in, Dan, is what happens is it squeezes the center of the attack and the pitch, and it opens up the outside lanes for Benfica's wingbacks or Benfica's fullbacks, depending on the formation. And they've got some very, very powerful runners in Frederick Arsnes, who's actually a central midfielder, but he's playing at fullback, and Alexander Ba. They've got Dahl on the left hand side. They've got Carreras on the left hand side who love to maraud into those gaps. So overlaps are going to be a big, big issue. I think Benfica's fullbacks create a lot of issue. And if you go and watch the Bayern Munich game back, it was actually through an overlap that they ended up getting a goal for Schelderup. So I think that's the tough thing about Benfica. They're quite fast. They're very industrious both ways, and they can hurt you in a variety of ways.
Maybe something we could jump into as well is the midfield, because obviously, a few seasons ago, Chelsea ended up bringing Enzo Fernandez, to the team, to the side from Benfica, and so they've had to replace him. They have looked to do a good job in doing that in terms of, finding someone of a similar comp level, just in terms of his performance previously, maybe not at the same point, kind of trajectory wise as where Enzo's at right now. And then, I mean, you mentioned him earlier too. Otamendi is going to be someone that people who've watched Chelsea for a long time will be very familiar with some of the Manchester City and Chelsea games over the last decade. love to talk a little bit more about those two things, both and how their midfield has evolved a little bit post Enzo, and then Otamendi, really in terms of that partnership in the back and how I think maybe defensively resolute they've been able to be at times.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we talked about like the midfield partnership, so Enzo's midfield partner there was Florentino Luis, who under Roger Schmidt was an absolutely brilliant midfielder. But lots of teams in Europe were looking at him for a defensive midfielder who could basically tackle, shoot, run, essentially do a box to box role as a pivot, and also support somebody like an Enzo Fernandez, who's more of a creative output midfielder. So he's going to be, if he is fit, there's question marks over whether he's going to be available for this one. He played in an earlier game in the Club World Cup and he essentially got injured. So we don't know whether he's going to be there. But the midfield is essentially built along those, very nitty gritty combative, tenacious midfield to try and essentially get the ball wins in there, trying to get the duels right. You've also got somebody like an Orkun Koksu, who's also more of a progressive passing guy, will offer a lot of penetration and goal assist contributions. In fact, Dan, when we were looking at Enzo Fernandez and the fee sort of crossed 100 million, there were Dimitri, for example, is somebody who's obviously got McLaughlin, and he's got a tool that allows you to compare players. And one of the first players that popped up on an Enzo Fernandez comp was Okun Koksu as the guy who's most similar to them. And it was no surprise that when Enzo Fernandez left, they essentially bought Koksu to replace him. So, I mean, I would say hats off to Dimitri. His tool is brilliant. So, a little shout out for them. But yeah, he's essentially somebody who does the Enzo role and has a lot of support in powerful runners. It's just a progressive guy who can't really run that well, guarded by two stronger bodyguards who do the like defensive dirty work around him. So that's going to be the midfield essentially. But Koksu, for example, came up with 14 goal assist contributions last season, 7 goals, 7 assists, and he was rested. He didn't start essentially against Bayern, but he probably will in this one, depending on how the midfield goes. But the midfield is key to that out of possession approach, then, because they tend to go 4-4-2 in a mid block, and when they're deeper, sometimes a 5-3-2 or a 5-4-1, and all of it is dependent on how hard the midfield works. And it's essentially trying to squeeze narrow. It's trying to create a very compact block from where you can't pass through. You have to go from the wider areas, and that's where the issues happen because the wingers have to get involved and you're always outnumbered 2-1. So it's going to be tough in that midfield where they're going to try and win the ball. They will go back to front very, very quickly. So they also rested the midfield, like I mentioned. Luis didn't play, wasn't available. Koksu was rested. So there's a good chance that they come fit and fresh, just like us, into this one. So it's going to be a good day for Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez to test their mettle against a good midfield. So yeah, and we mentioned like the defense. Otamendi is a former boxer, so not somebody who's used to being outmuscled or overawed. So he will be quite strong in there, even at the age of 37. And then you've got Antonio Silva, who I really really like as a centre back, very well rounded defensively, very good in the air and on the ground. And Truban is somebody that we were looking at as a goalkeeping option, superb shot stopper. He's also like slowly learning to play out the back, but essentially a very good shot stopper. I think he was one of my man of the matches in men of the match in the Bayern game, and he did super well. So yeah, he's definitely going to be an interesting factor. In fact, if I could put a little bit of a parlay down, I would say that I would have him hands on to make at least 5 saves in that quarterfinals or in that round of 16 games. So it's going to be quite interesting. But you find a way past him, and hopefully we'll bring home the bacon.
And then so switching gears then, Chelsea fans want to hear about some ways that, they, should feel or maybe some kind of, we haven't done it in a while, beyond the ledge prediction to hopefully hear us predict a Chelsea win in some way, shape, or form about this one. Sam, any thoughts on final predictions for this game?
Well, I think it's going to be quite back and forth. I think it's going to be very, very fast and furious. But I'd probably say like a pretty pretty high scoring game. I'd probably say like
Ooh.
3-2 maybe. Yeah, maybe a 3-2. I don't
Whoa.
know. I mean, yeah. So I think a 3-2 win for Chelsea. I'll probably go with that. I think both teams are well rested. I think both will try to go. The weather is a factor, but I still think there will be some mistakes. I think there will be a lot of fighting here and there. So I'll probably go 3-2. I don't know about you, but I see issues there, and there are some weaknesses in this Benfica side. For example, Alexander Ba, first choice right back, is injured. Thomas Araujo, who also was first choice right back at a point, is also injured. He's a doubt. So it mean like Orsnes, who's a center midfielder, will play there. So there could be some issues on that left wing, depending on who plays. It would have been nice to have Gittens for this one, but we'll make do with what we have. So, and it's also like a high pressing side, Dan. Like I mentioned, they love pressing, they love pushing their line up, they will try to be aggressive. So there will be a lot of opportunity to play balls in behind, to run. So I do seeing it as being a very open game. So I don't know, maybe 3+ goals for sure in this game, both sides
Wow.
combined. But let's just go for the freakish 3-2. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm feeling ambitious.
So I think there's going to be value for money for people who go to see this game, and I think it's going to end the full time score of 1-1, and we're going to get extra time. And I
You're
think that
probably thinking, you're probably thinking like after the second cooling break, just game over. Nobody wants to move.
so I think it's a 1-1 to end regulation, and I think in overtime, Chelsea will notch a winner, and it'll be a 2-1 victory. But it is going to probably just infuriate some fans, and for those who are in attendance, I do apologize for the hot and humid day that you will be enjoying out. Hopefully, watching Chelsea win. So I guess those are some fun on the ledge predictions for this one. Maybe just shifting gears a little bit, Sam. I know that were some rumors about they've kind of come up and down pretty much in the same time that they were reported. We saw news about Emi Martinez being linked, and then almost immediately dismissed. Ben Jacobs came in with that one. We saw the report that Josh Chempon might be someone that was Chelsea were willing to let leave. And then we heard, oh, actually, no, Chelsea have no intention of letting him leave. And then we've seen Andre Santos potentially being someone who may be unhappy with his role and Chelsea potentially shopping him elsewhere. And then we see news about, no, Chelsea just don't want to sell that player. So we've seen a couple of things, and maybe just the caution we would want to put out there is this is still very much in the early days of the transfer window, the true transfer window, not the transfer window we had from the 1st to the 10th of June. So there's a lot that can change. And so Chelsea still need to strengthen in a couple key positions. That's why we've talked about Jamie Gittens several times. That's why we've talked about goalkeepers again still. It's why we've talked about either right-sided defenders or, replacements or backups for Marc Cucurella. So I guess caution is what I would want to preach to people, but any of those maybe been more interesting than others to you about either the rumor or some of the names you've seen that you're interested in Chelsea being connected to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Andre Santos news is, I would say, quite natural at this point of the window because he's not been played, and obviously after the season that he's had at Strasbourg, you would expect him to be in the reckoning. And I would expect Maresca and the sporting directors to actually do the intelligent thing and tell Maresca, look, we've got Enzo Fernandez, who played an incredible amount of games last season. He's also somebody who flies regularly to Argentina. So you need to have Champions League level depth, and that depth needs to be available. And I wish I could say that about Romeo Lavia, but we haven't been able to. So until Romeo Lavia plays at least 65% of the games in a season, you cannot rely on him. And that means giving Andre Santos game minutes now. Just try and get him integrated as soon as possible, even before you go into those friendlies. So I'm not going to lose my mind over those rumors right now. It's completely natural for agents to try and put pressure on the club. So I will just say, watch out for this one. I think he is within rights to say I need to start, and I think the club should listen. I think he's a player of that caliber who I wouldn't say is perfect. Needs to just try and polish those edges that were a little raw in his loan spell. But other than that, he's a fantastic player. He can play in multiple positions, multiple roles. He fits into every tactical system. So why wouldn't you play him? So that would be my take on Andre Santos. With Gittens, I'm still a little on the edge. I think what is great is you are getting a freak athlete, and more often than not, that tends to work in the Premier League, even if you are a little raw. So, if we do have fast breaks, and especially in competitions like the Champions League, I expect him to do well because that's where the space is, and that's where teams come to play. They're not going to sit and prioritize a point in the knockout stages. You have to go for the jugular. So I think he becomes a game breaker like Jeremy Doku, who can come on, take 7-on-7 take-ons, try to create some issues. I think we've lacked that with Sancho. We've lacked that with a couple of players on the left-hand side, and he provides that. So I don't really think he's the perfect one, but if we play him right and if Maresca does the right thing by giving him support, he could well be a super buy. But 65 million scares me a little bit for a quick winger whose shelf lives are quite often very short. Um, right centre back, Dan. Do you have any names in mind? No, have you seen any guys who you think you would like to have?
I don't know at this point in time. Maybe I guess we've seen several names in every position linked to Chelsea, which half the time is a agent trying to make sure that their player is connected to big teams and can either get a contract negotiation done at their current club or push for a move elsewhere to similar level clubs if that's what they're looking for. But I don't know if I've seen one that I'm super excited around. I mean, I think that in general, we talked about this on the Keep Sell Loan. I mean, if West Fofana is healthy and if Levi Colwell can be his partner, like you've got a really good duo. Plus, you have Tosin available. I mean, we have seen the links to Benoit Badiashile leaving. We've seen that Trev Chalobah, can leave, but isn't necessarily being like shopped around at this point in time. So I feel like you actually kind of have a pretty stable group there, and so it doesn't rise to my top level concern. But do you rank it any higher at the moment, given our existing complement of players?
I'd probably say the priorities are elsewhere, isn't it, Dan? I mean, I feel like a right centre back is a good to have, not a must have. And I wish I could say that about multiple other positions. Like left winger is a must have, in my opinion. A left back depth for Kukureya is a must have. You cannot go into the season without any kind of backup to Marco Correa. So I think that's where the club should be focusing. You cannot afford to have hole there. I think that might cost us very deeply. I think Correa has played an incredible amount. I think it was his 51st game for us the last time that he ventured out for club and country. I mean, for club only. Sorry, in all competitions. For country, it sort of like pushes even further. So it's just dangerous territory and quite irresponsible. But if I had to look at a right centre back, I really like Ilya Zabarny from Bournemouth, the Ukrainian centre back, and I've also liked Diomande from Sporting, but apparently his release clause and the fee that has been asked for him is very heavy. So I would be reluctant to spend big money there. Although Silva will have a great addition at centre back also tomorrow, so he'll be one to watch because we have been linked with him earlier in previous other windows. But I would say left back depth is key. And left winger, I don't think we have many options. There's Malik Fofana and Gittens. Nobody wants to touch Alejandro Garnacho with a 10-foot bamboo because of the noise surrounding him. So, you have a left hand and a right hand there. So just take your pick.
Well, good things to keep in mind. I guess, in terms of a next element here, as we tease out a little bit more of that Gittens conversation, any one or two things you want to leave people with in hey, before hopefully he gets signed and this deal is done so that we don't continue to wait to plan for the upcoming season and the time we drop our pod, if he were to be signed, are there one or two things you would point people to, or maybe games you would say would be very interesting to go check out if you wanted to learn more about the player?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of games. I think one against Eintracht Frankfurt was quite nice. One that I watched, I think a full range of his game-breaking abilities in display. There, the one against Freiburg at home was also quite good, I think. So yeah, those two games would say go back and watch them. 90 minutes, see the good things, see the bad things. Take it also with a pinch of salt because sometimes the space on offer because of all the pressing in the Bundesliga is vast, and you see players just having all the room to stretch your ligaments and hit 50, 60 yard sprints into space. But It's not going to be the same case here. But I think what you're getting is somebody who will get you much like Mudrik at just the edge of your seats. Every time he sprints, every time he just jinks past somebody, he's somebody who can do that. Just like Doku, I bring back that reference over and over again because City use him in that manner. They've got a lead at 60 minutes, and the space starts opening up. They throw Doku on either flank, and he breaks fullbacks. Like he will go and he will over and over run at people. He will hit the byline. He will try to get the ball in, and um, a lot of similarities in strengths and also in weaknesses in terms of just getting the final ball right. But he's exhilarating. I think he's very exciting to watch, which sometimes makes you forget transfer fees. So hopefully that is the case, and hopefully the output reflects that too. But yeah, I think it's definitely one that people will enjoy watching after what we've seen on the left wing the last couple of seasons. So good luck to everybody. I think it'll be a good signing. Fingers crossed.
Well, we will leave you with that one and a little bit of a tease for what would be a full preview pod and a player that we have not yet signed, but hopefully we have because Sam has done a ton of work to evaluate him. But look, this is going to drop the day of the Benfica game. So if we haven't had a chance to, if Chelsea haven't played that first part of the podcast, hopefully you enjoyed. And maybe we got some on the ledge predictions right because both of us did talk about Chelsea, getting across the line here into the next stage of the competition. But that's going to do it for this one. So thank you so much for listening. Tons more Chelsea content coming your way next week. A Benfica match review, hopefully a preview of our next game in the Club World Cup, and then other updates from our journalist friends and so much more. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep blue flag flying high.